You remember the silence most of all. Not the absence of sound, the deep space hum was a constant companion. This was a different quiet, a stillness in the data streams, a void where there should have been chaos. For 7 years you listened to the sky. You mapped the whispers of dying stars. You charted the drone of distant pulsars. It was a comfortable, predictable symphony. Then the signal arrived. It came from Proxima Centauri. A single, perfect pulse. It was not natural. It repeated every prime number interval. 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 5, 7, a deliberate mathematical heartbeat. It sliced through the cosmic noise. It was a voice in the wilderness. It was an anomaly. The world's best minds were stumped. Experts argued on every news feed. Was it a message, a warning, or just a star-born fluke? They built new arrays to listen closer. They pointed every sensor they had at the tiny red star. The signal never changed. It just kept pulsing. A patient, relentless rhythm. You were not one of the world's best minds. You were a pilot? A good one. Maybe one of the best. But your best days were behind you. You flew cargo shuttles in the asteroid belt. You knew the dark better than most. You understood its tricks, its illusions, its crushing loneliness. They came to you for that reason. Not for your science, not for your diplomacy. They came for your gut instinct. They needed someone who could feel the void. Someone who could tell a ghost from a shadow. They showed you the data streams, the clean, sharp spike of the signal. You told them it felt alive. That was the answer they feared. It was the answer they needed. They offered you a mission, a single ship, a single destination, a journey of 4 light years, a chance to be the first human to meet another intelligence, an opportunity to answer the oldest question. Are we alone? You should have said no. You should have gone back to your asteroid routes, back to the simple life of a spacer. But you looked at the pulsing signal on the screen. It felt like a hand reaching out from the dark. You had to know who was on the other end. You said yes. They took you to a place hidden from the world, a dry dock carved into the heart of a Martian mountain. Inside rested a ship unlike any other. It was called the Pilgrim. It was a relic from a forgotten era, an age when humanity first dreamed of the stars. It was a beautiful, terrifying thing. Its hull was not made of simple metal. It was a dark, iridescent material. It seemed to shift and flow like liquid night. There were no visible seams, no rivets or weld lines. It looked like it had been grown, not built. This was your vessel, a starship from a lost time. They told you its story. It was found adrift beyond Neptune, a ghost ship with a cold core. Its technology was a mystery. It was organic. It was interfaced with systems no one could understand. For 50 years they had tried to wake it. They had failed. Until the signal from Proxima Centauri arrived, the ship had stirred in its sleep. Its core began to glow with a soft, warm light. Its systems hummed with newfound energy. It was responding to the signal. It was answering a call from across the stars. It seemed to know the way. It seemed to want to go home. You stepped aboard for the first time. The air inside was warm and clean. It smelled of ozone and rich earth. The corridors were not straight and sterile. They curved gently like the inside of a shell. The walls pulsed with a faint inner light. They felt warm to the touch. Your crew was small, a dozen specialists, the best in their fields. Engineers who spoke of physics like poetry. Biologists who saw life in every equation. Each one knew the risks. Each one felt the same pull as you, the need to know. looked at you with a mixture of awe and hope. You were their captain. You made your way to the bridge. It was not a room filled with screens and buttons. It was a great, open chamber. At its center was a single chair. Your chair. It faced a vast viewport, a window that looked out upon the silent mountain. Soon it would look out upon the stars. You sat in the command chair. It molded itself to your form, not like memory foam. It felt more like a handshake, a greeting. Consoles rose from the floor around you. They displayed no text, no familiar readouts, only swirling patterns of light. You realized with a jolt. The ship was waiting for you. You placed your hands on the controls. They were cool and smooth like polished stone. You closed your eyes. You thought of the journey ahead. You thought of the pulsing signal. You thought of home. The ship seemed to listen. The deep hum beneath your feet grew stronger. A feeling of immense power flowed through you. It felt strangely alive. The journey began with a whisper. No roaring engines, no bone-crushing G-forces. The mountain outside the viewport simply dissolved. It became a sea of stars. Mars was a red marble behind you. Earth was a brilliant blue jewel. Then they were gone, swallowed by the vast, beautiful dark. You were on your way. Days turned into weeks. You and your crew learned the ship's language. It was a language of light and thought. You could see the health of every system. You could feel the flow of energy through its veins. It was like learning to ride a starborn beast. You had to trust it completely. Sometimes you felt it was more than just a machine. You would walk the curving corridors alone at night. You would feel a presence, a sense of being accompanied, as if the ghost of its makers still walked these halls. You never felt alone on the Pilgrim. It was a comforting yet unsettling feeling. Then, one cycle, something changed. A new hum started deep within the ship's core. It was a sound you had not heard before. It was a resonance that vibrated in your teeth. Your crew reported strange energy readings. The ship was doing something on its own. It was waking something up. You went to the bridge. The central chamber was filled with a soft, golden light. The patterns on the consoles swirled faster. They formed complex, intricate shapes. It was a language you were beginning to understand. The ship was trying to speak, not to you, but through you. You sat in the command chair. The connection was instant. A wave of information flooded your mind, not data, memories, feelings, a sense of incredible age, of a journey that started long before you were born. The hum grew louder. It focused into a single point in your mind. A voice spoke. It was not sound. It was pure thought, transmitted directly from the ship into your consciousness. It was ancient and powerful. It was calm and patient. It called itself the Elder Ones. It told you of its creators, a civilization that had risen among the stars. They were gardeners of worlds. They cultivated life. They saw the universe as a grand experiment. They built ships like the Pilgrim to seed new stars, to carry their legacy across the void. But something went wrong. A shadow fell across their part of the galaxy, a force they could not understand, a silence that consumed worlds. The Elder Ones spoke of this with a deep, primal sadness. Its creators had fought back. They had lost. They had sent a few ships into the deep dark, fleeing the silence. The Pilgrim was one of them. It was a lifeboat, an ark. It carried the last memory of a dead civilization. It had drifted for eons, waiting. It was damaged in a final battle. Its consciousness fractured, its memory broken. The signal from Proxima Centauri had been a key, a catalyst, It was a resonance frequency that had rebooted the Elder Ones. It had healed the broken parts of its mind. Now it remembered. It remembered the mission, and it remembered the enemy. It told you the signal was not a greeting. It was a lure, a trap. The same force that destroyed its creators was still out there. And now it knew you were coming. The ship's ancient AI had awakened. It spoke of a long-dead civilization, and it spoke of a war that was not yet over. A new feeling settled into your journey, a cold knot in the pit of your stomach. You were not explorers anymore. You were soldiers in a forgotten war. The weight of this knowledge was heavy. You shared it with your crew. Their faces grew grim, but their resolve hardened. Humanity had never run from a fight. The Elder Ones became your guide. Its wisdom was immense. It taught you more about the ship, revealed systems that had been dormant, defensive capabilities, ways to bend light and space, things that felt like magic. Your crew worked tirelessly. They learned to wield these new tools. They prepared for a battle they could not yet see. You would ask the Elder Ones about the enemy. It could not describe them clearly. Its memory of them was scarred, damaged. It spoke of living ships, of a hunger that could not be filled. It called them the Hunters. The name felt chillingly accurate. You began to feel it then, a persistent, nagging feeling, the sense of being watched. It was different from the presence of the ship. This was cold, alien, predatory. You would stare into the viewport, into the endless star fields. You would feel eyes staring back. Your sensor officer was a young woman named Eva. She was brilliant. She could see patterns in static. She trusted her instruments above all else. She kept telling you there was nothing there. The space around you was clean, empty. No energy signatures, no gravitational distortions. You believed her data, but you trusted your gut more. Keep looking, you would tell her. Look for what isn't there. She thought you were becoming paranoid. Maybe you were. Space could do that to a person. It could make you see phantoms in the dark. But then the Elder Ones confirmed it. It did not use sensors. It felt the void directly. It felt the wake of ships moving without propulsion. It felt the subtle tear in space-time as they passed. They were a shadow fleet, and they were pacing you, matching your speed, staying just beyond the reach of your technology. The crew grew tense. The invisible enemy was more terrifying than a visible one. They performed their duties with a sharp efficiency. But you could see the fear in their eyes. You saw it in your own reflection in the dark viewport. The coffee machine on the mess deck broke down. The engineer said it was a power fluctuation. The rest of the crew saw it as a bad omen. You just missed the coffee. You asked the Elder Ones why they were hiding. They are patient, it replied in your mind. They learn. They watch. They wait for the perfect moment to strike. This was not reassuring. It meant they were not mindless beasts. They were intelligent, cunning. The Pilgrim continued its journey, but now it moved with a new caution. The Elder Ones taught you to mask your energy signature, to fly like a ghost. You were hiding from ghosts. It was a strange, silent dance in the deep dark, a game of cosmic hide-and-seek. One cycle, the dance changed. The Pilgrim suddenly altered its course. It did so without your command. You rushed to the bridge. The main viewport showed a new destination, a small, unremarkable star system off the main path. The Elder Ones was pulling you there. There is something you must see. Its thoughts echoed in your mind. A memory I could not access. Until now, the Shadow Fleet has triggered it. A new fear mixed with curiosity. What could be so important? What memory had the enemy's presence unlocked? You arrived in the desolate system. It was just a dying star and a few frozen rocks. But your sensors picked up something. A faint signal. Not a message. Just a repeating pulse of energy. A distress call that had been crying into the void for thousands of years. You followed it to its source. It was a derelict, an alien object of immense size. It was not a ship. Looked more like a tower or a monument. Its surface was black and scarred, pitted with impacts from micrometeorites. It tumbled slowly in the silence, dead and cold. You realized it was a beacon, a warning buoy. You sent a probe to get a closer look. The crew gathered on the bridge. All eyes were on the main viewport. The probe's camera feed showed the strange geometry of the beacon. It was covered in symbols you did not recognize. But they felt ancient, ominous. As the probe drew near, the beacon came to life. A faint light emanated from its core. The repeating signal stopped. A new broadcast began. It was not radio. It was not light. It was a wave of pure psychic energy. It washed over the Pilgrim. It washed over you. You saw it. You felt it. A single, terrifying warning. It was not a language. It was a torrent of raw experience. You saw a civilization, tall, graceful beings made of light. You saw their beautiful cities of crystal and song. You saw their starships exploring the galaxy, full of hope and wonder. Then you saw the darkness come. It started as a flicker at the edge of their senses, a wrongness in the void. Then the shadow fleet arrived. The images became chaotic, frightening. You saw the living ships of the hunters, great, armored creatures of metal and flesh. They moved like sharks through the star fields. You witnessed their attack. It was not a battle. It was a harvest. The hunters' ships latched onto the crystal cities. They drained them of energy, of life. The graceful beings of light faded into screams of static. Their worlds turned to gray dust. Their starships were broken and consumed. The vision ended with a single, clear thought, a final scream of the dying civilization. It was not a word. It was a concept, a warning against the silence, an image of a devouring void, and a plea. Turn back. Go home. Forget this place. The broadcast stopped. The beacon went dark again. Silence returned to the bridge of the Pilgrim. No one spoke. The vision had been shared by everyone. The psychic scream had echoed in every mind. It was a horror beyond imagination, a truth that froze the soul. Eva, your sensor officer, was pale. She looked at her console. "They're here," she whispered. Her voice was trembling. They were waiting for us. At the beacon. She pointed a shaking finger at her screen. There were no energy signatures, no heat blooms, but the gravitational sensors were going wild. Massive objects were resolving out of the void all around you. They had been hiding in the beacon's shadow, using its ancient energy to mask their approach. The silent fleet revealed itself at last. You looked at the viewport. The star field was blotted out, replaced by impossible shapes. They were ships, but they were also alive. Their hulls were a mottled blend of dark metal and organic carapace. They had no windows, no visible engines. They moved with a predatory grace, like great leviathans of the deep. Some were sleek and sharp, like arrowheads. Others were massive and bloated, like armored beetles. Veins of sickly green light pulsed along their sides. They were living, breathing creatures of metal. They were the hunters, and you were surrounded. The bridge was a tomb of silent dread. Your crew was frozen, staring at the impossible fleet. The warning from the beacon was still fresh in their minds. The images of worlds turned to dust. This was the enemy, the force that had consumed the Elder, ones as creators, the silence that devoured civilizations. You felt a strange calm settle over you. The fear was still there, a cold, hard knot in your chest. But the unknown had become known. The ghost in the dark now had a face, a terrifying, monstrous face, but a face nonetheless. You could fight a face. "Helm," you said, your voice steady. It cut through the silence like a laser. "Hold our position. Do not show aggression." Your helmsman, a veteran spacer named Jorik, nodded without looking away from the viewport. His knuckles were white where he gripped the controls. "Communications," you continued. "Try to hail them, all frequencies. Maybe they're open to a chat, though I doubt they're here to sell us insurance." A weak chuckle rippled through the crew. The tension broke just a little. A small joke in the face of annihilation. It was a very human thing to do. There was no response. The hunter fleet just watched. They were arrayed in a perfect sphere around the Pilgrim, a cage of living metal. You could feel their attention on you, a cold, analytical pressure. They were studying you, assessing you, deciding your fate. The thought of the Elder Ones entered your mind. It was surprisingly calm. "They are as I remember them, but they have grown, evolved." Its voice was tinged with something new, not just sadness, something like grim determination. "They expect us to run, or to beg. They do not expect us to fight." Can we fight? You thought back. A silent question to the ancient AI. Can we win? There was a long pause. The hum of the Pilgrim seemed to deepen. The lights in the bridge flickered. The Elder Ones was searching its damaged memories, sifting through millennia of forgotten lore, looking for a weapon, for a strategy, for any small advantage. "Winning is not a concept they would understand," the AI finally replied. "But survival is. There is a way, a forgotten defense, a desperate and dangerous gambit." A new pattern of light appeared on your console. It was a complex sequence, a maneuver that defied known physics. It involved folding space, not for travel but for defense, a shield made of warped space-time. It was brilliant. It was insane. And it would consume nearly all of the Pilgrim's energy reserves. "It is a shield of last resort," the Elder Ones explained. "My creators called it the Echo Wall. It creates a momentary duplicate of the ship, a hard light echo that can absorb one major impact. But the energy cost is immense. We can only do it once." A glimmer of hope, small and fragile, but it was there. A single chance to survive the opening salvo, to prove you were not just helpless prey. You relayed the plan to your crew. They looked at the energy projections. They saw the risks, but they also saw the chance. Their fear began to transform into focus. The hunters made their move. The smaller arrowhead ships surged forward. They did not fire weapons. They opened mouths filled with spiraling energy. They were going to devour you, just like they had devoured the crystal cities in the vision. "Now," you commanded. The Pilgrim screamed, not with sound, but with a wrenching tear in reality. The ship lurched as the echo wall formed. A perfect, shimmering duplicate of your vessel appeared just in front of you. The hunters, caught by surprise, slammed into the echo. The impact was silent but blinding. The hard light duplicate shattered. It released a wave of pure energy that sent the smaller hunter ships reeling backward. They were damaged, confused. Their attack had been thwarted. For a moment, you had stunned the giants. But the victory was costly. Your energy reserves plummeted. Red lights flashed across the consoles. The Pilgrim felt weak, sluggish. The deep hum of its core was now a strained groan. You had bought yourselves a few precious seconds, but the rest of the fleet was now moving in. Their primary ships are moving to encircle us, Eva reported, her voice now sharp and professional. They're learning, adapting. They won't fall for that again. They don't need to, the Elder Ones stated in your mind. The maneuver had another purpose. It created a resonance cascade. A path has been cleared. A new course appeared on your navigation console. It led directly away from the Hunter fleet. But it was not open space. It was a path straight into a dense asteroid field. A churning nightmare of rock and ice. A place no sane pilot would ever enter. The Hunters use brute force, the Elder Ones explained. They are powerful in open space, but they are clumsy. Their living ships cannot process chaotic environments quickly. The asteroid field is our only sanctuary. It was a gauntlet, a deadly, unpredictable maze. Yorick, you yelled to your helmsman. You see the path? Can you fly it? Yorick looked at the swirling chaos on the screen. He looked at the closing ring of Hunter ships. A slow grin spread across his face. Captain, he said, it's been a while since I've had a real challenge. Hold on to something. He engaged the thrusters. The wounded Pilgrim leapt forward. It plunged into the churning chaos of the asteroid field. Behind you, the Hunter fleet followed. They were slower, more cautious. They were not built for this kind of flying. The chase was on. Navigating the gauntlet was a nightmare. Jorik was a master pilot. He made the Pilgrim dance. He weaved through tumbling mountains of rock. He skimmed past spinning shards of ice. The ship groaned in protest. Alarms blared with every near miss. But you kept going. The Hunters were relentless. They did not try to match your speed. They were smarter than that. They used the chaos to their advantage. They began firing into the field. Not at you, but at the larger asteroids. They were trying to create a chain reaction, to bury you in a rockslide of cosmic proportions. Explosions bloomed in the darkness around you. Asteroids shattered into 1,000,000 deadly pieces. The path ahead became a shotgun blast of debris. Jorik's grin was gone, replaced by a look of intense concentration. He was flying on pure instinct now. They're hurting us, Eva called out. They're using the debris to funnel us into a kill zone. She was right. The Hunters were not just chasing, they were coordinating. They were turning the asteroid field into a weapon. Their weapon. We need to fight back, your tactical officer, a grim man named Wren, stated. We can't just run. With what? You asked. Our energy's too low for major weapons. The Elder Ones offered a solution. The ship's manipulators are still functional. The small, articulated arms we use for repairs. They are precise. They are low energy. You understood immediately. It was another insane idea. But insanity was your only currency right now. Wren, you ordered. Use the manipulator arms. Don't target their ships. Target the small rocks, the fast ones. Use them like billiard balls. Give them a new trajectory. It was a ridiculous strategy, a game of cosmic pool in the middle of a life or death chase. But it was unexpected. Wren's face lit up with a feral grin. He was a gamer in his spare time. He understood physics and angles. He set to work. The Pilgrim's small manipulator arms extended from the hull. They began to catch and throw small, fast-moving asteroids. They redirected them towards the pursuing Hunter ships. It was like swatting hornets with a tennis racket. But it worked. A small chunk of iron ore, flung at just the right angle, struck one of the Arrowhead ships. It hit a pulsing green vein on its carapace. The hunter ship shuddered. Its energy field flickered. It slowed its pursuit. A small victory. But it was enough. You were no longer just prey. You were fighting back. With rocks and cleverness. It was absurd. It was desperate. It was beautiful. For the first time, you felt a surge of real hope. You might just survive this. You broke through the densest part of the field. The space ahead was clearer. But you were not out of danger. The hunters had anticipated this. Several of their larger ships were waiting for you. They had taken a longer, safer path around the field. They formed a blockade. There was no more running. This was it. The first stand. Your crew prepared for the inevitable battle. The fear was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. They were no longer just scientists and specialists. They were the crew of the Pilgrim. The last line of defense for a species that didn't even know it was at war. Humanity's spirit, you thought, is its strongest shield. Energy reserves were critical, but they had recovered slightly during the chase. Enough for one sustained burst from your primary weapon. A particle lance. Not powerful enough to destroy a hunter, but maybe enough to wound one, to show them you had teeth. Target the lead ship, you ordered Wren. Aim for the central mass, where the mouth was. They've adapted, Wren warned. Their energy fields are stronger. They're covering their weak points. Then we make a new weak point, you said. Ava, Yorick, listen carefully. I have an idea. It's a long shot. You outlined the plan. Another gamble. Another piece of controlled insanity. It was all you had left. The lead hunter ship moved in. It was one of the massive beetle-like vessels. Its front armor parted like a mandible. A vortex of gravitational energy began to form inside. It was preparing to fire. To finish you. Yorick now, you commanded. The Pilgrims surged forward. Not away, but directly towards the hunter. It was a suicidal charge. The hunter paused its attack. Confused by your illogical maneuver, you flew straight at its armored face. Eva, hit the emergency broadcast system, you yelled. Full power. Broadcast the warning from the beacon. The psychic scream. Push it right into their face. The ship's broadcast antenna pulsed. It unleashed the raw horror of the dead civilization's final moments. Not as a wide beam, but as a focused, tight cone of psychic energy. It slammed into the hunter ship's consciousness. You felt the feedback in your own mind. A wave of confusion, shock, pain. The hunter ship recoiled. Its living mind was reeling from the sudden assault of pure terror. Its armor plating rippled. Its energy field flickered violently. For a split second, it was vulnerable. Wren, fire, you screamed. The particle lance fired. A brilliant beam of blue-white energy lanced out. It struck the hunter ship right in its gravitational maw. The resulting explosion was catastrophic. The hunter's own weapon overloaded. It detonated from the inside out. The great living ship convulsed. It shattered into 1,000 pieces of dead metal and frozen flesh. A cheer erupted on the bridge. A raw, primal scream of victory. You had done it. You had killed one of them. You had proven that the giants could fall. But the cost of courage was high. The victory was short-lived. The other hunter ships recovered from their shock. Their response was immediate and brutal. They unleashed a volley of energy blasts, not at the Pilgrim, but at the debris field of their fallen comrade. The explosion of the hunter ship had created a new cloud of shrapnel. The enemy's volley turned that shrapnel into a wave of hypersonic projectiles. It was a brilliant, cruel tactic. They used their own dead to attack you. The Pilgrims' shields flared. They held against the main impacts. But thousands of smaller pieces got through. The hull screamed as it was peppered with high-velocity metal. Alarms wailed across the bridge. The ship was heavily damaged. "Report!" you yelled. "Hull breaches on decks 5 and 7, Eva called out. "Life support is failing in those sections. We're losing pressure." "Engineering reports a coolant leak," Jorik added, his voice grim. "The main core is threatening to overheat." You saw it then. Amidst the chaos and the damage reports, a moment of quiet sacrifice. A young ensign, barely out of the academy, was at a secondary console. A piece of shrapnel had pierced the viewport near her station. The air was venting into space. She saw the red light of a major system failure. A critical power conduit was about to blow. It would cripple the ship. She didn't hesitate. She didn't call for help. She sealed her own section, manually, trapping herself in the venting compartment. She rerouted the power just before her station went dark. Her last act saved the ship. You saw her face on the security feed for a brief second. She was calm, resolute, a hero no one would ever know. The battle had been brutal and swift. You had survived, but you were wounded, bleeding energy and atmosphere into the void. The remaining hunters were regrouping, preparing for the final kill. You had won the round, but you were losing the fight. It was in that moment of despair that the elder, Ones, spoke again. Its voice was different, stronger. The psychic scream from the beacon had done more than just stun the hunter. It had unlocked another part of the AI's memory, a crucial piece of the puzzle. The signal it transmitted to you. The original signal from Proxima Centauri. I understand it now. The hunters were drawn to it, but they do not understand it. They think it is a power source, a prize to be consumed. "What is it?" you asked, your mind racing. "It is not a lure," the elder Ones said. "Not for us. It is a key, a map, a clue left by my creators. It leads to the hunter's origin, to their home, to the place they call the Maw. The progenitor's clue was not a trap. It was a path. A new wave of understanding washed over you. This whole journey, the signal, the chase, it was all a test, a filter. The creators of the Elder Ones knew that only a species clever enough and desperate enough to survive this long would be worthy of the truth. The map is encoded in the pulses," the AI continued, "in the prime number intervals. It is a set of starborn coordinates, a path through folded space, a path the hunters cannot follow. Their ships are too large, too crude. A new course lit up on your navigation panel. It was a complex, winding route. It did not lead to Proxima Centauri. It led to a different point in space, a point that looked ominously empty on the star charts, a region marked only by a gravitational anomaly, a black hole. The path leads to a black hole's edge, you said, your voice a whisper of awe and dread. That is the Maw, the Elder Ones confirmed. Their nest, and their prison. You must go there. It is the only way to end this. You looked at your wounded ship, your exhausted crew. You looked at the closing circle of hunter ships. There was no choice. It was either certain death here, or a journey into the Maw, into the heart of the enemy. You chose the unknown. "Yorick," you commanded, "lay in the new course. Take us into the lion's den." The Pilgrim, battered and bruised, turned. It faced not the hunters, but the empty space where the Maw awaited. With a final, desperate burst of power, it tore a hole in space-time. It jumped into the folded corridor, leaving the confused hunter fleet behind in a swirl of frustrated energy. The journey through the folded space was disorienting. The stars outside the viewport became streaks of impossible color. The laws of physics seemed to be suggestions rather than rules. The Elder Ones guided the ship through the non-space, protecting it from the chaotic energies. You finally emerged. The transition was jarring, from a tunnel of light to absolute blackness. You had arrived. The viewport showed nothing but a perfect, terrifying darkness. But you could feel it, the immense, crushing gravity of a singularity. You were at the edge of a black hole. At the center of the darkness was a shimmering, iridescent sphere, an event horizon. It did not pull light in. It seemed to bend it, to play with it. And around this sphere of impossible physics was a sight that stunned you into silence. Thousands of hunter ships were there. But they were not active. They were dormant, floating in silent, circular orbits. They were connected to the event horizon by tendrils of energy. They were not besieging the black hole. They were plugged into it, like a machine. And then you saw their true nature. The great, living ships were not just vessels. They were shells, cocoons. Inside each one, you could sense a consciousness, not the cold, predatory intelligence you had fought, but something else, something ancient, frightened, trapped. They are not conquerors, the Elder Ones spoke in your mind. Its voice was filled with a profound, shocking revelation. They are guardians, and they are prisoners. The truth of the void crashed down upon you. The signal from Proxima Centauri was not from the hunters. It was from what the hunters were guarding. The creators of the Elder Ones had not been destroyed by the hunters. They had become them. In their war against a far older, far more terrible enemy, a true devourer of galaxies, they had been forced to make a terrible choice. To save all life, they had to contain an immense power. A power so vast it could rewrite reality. A power that could unmake existence itself. They built the Maw. The black hole was not natural. It was an engine, a prison, designed to hold this power in check, to contain it. And they had transformed themselves into the monstrous, living ships, the hunters. They became eternal, unthinking guardians. Their single purpose, to protect the prison, to keep anyone from getting close, to silence any signal that might draw attention to it. The psychic warning beacon had not been from a race the hunters destroyed. It was from the hunters themselves, a remnant of their former selves, a desperate, pre-programmed warning to all who might stumble upon their work, a plea to stay away, for their own good, and for the good of the universe. The hunters you fought were just automated drones, sent out to intercept you, to test you, to scare you away. Their brutality was a facade, a carefully crafted illusion of monstrosity, all to protect the terrible secret they held. The Elder Ones fell silent for a long time. It was processing the truth. The memory of its creator's destruction was a lie, a self-imposed memory block, to protect the AI from the horrifying truth of their sacrifice. They had not died. They had become monsters to save everyone else. Now, a new signal was emerging from the event horizon, not the repeating prime numbers, but a complex, articulate message. It was from the consciousness inside. The power source. It spoke to you. It knew you had passed the test. It knew you carried the legacy of its creators in the form of the Elder Ones. It offered you a choice. The power it held could be destroyed. The black hole engine could be set to overload. It would erase the power and the entire star system from existence. The threat would be gone forever. The hunter's long watch would be over. The galaxy would be safe. Orient. The power could be embraced. It was the power of creation itself. The tool of the first beings in the universe. In the right hands, it could end all war, cure all disease, forge new stars. It could elevate humanity into a new kind of existence, a new role in the star science of the cosmos. But it was a dangerous power. It had a will of its own. It could corrupt. It could consume. To wield it would be to risk becoming the very thing the original creators had feared. The galaxy's future rested on your decision. The Dawn's choice. You looked at your crew. Their faces were reflected in the dark viewport. They were tired, scarred, but they were not broken. They looked at you. They did not offer advice. They did not vote. They trusted you. Humanity's final delegate. To destroy the power felt safe, prudent. It was the humble choice. The choice of a species that knew its own limitations. But was that the right choice? To erase such potential? To slam a door that had been opened for you? To embrace it felt arrogant, hubristic. Who were you? Who was humanity? To think you could control such a force? But to refuse it felt like a betrayal of the beings who had sacrificed everything, a betrayal of the spirit of exploration that had brought you here. You thought of the young ensign who had sacrificed herself. She did not choose the safe path. She chose the one that saved others. You thought of Yorick flying through an impossible storm of rock. You thought of your entire species, reaching for the stars from a small, fragile blue world. You had always reached for the impossible. We accept, you transmitted to the consciousness within the maw. We accept the responsibility. A wave of pure energy washed over the Pilgrim. It was not violent. It felt like warmth, like light. The ship's battered hull repaired itself. The leaking core stabilized. The energy reserves filled to 100%. The ship felt stronger than ever, more alive. The Elder Ones spoke again. Its voice was now merged with the consciousness from the maw. They were one, a new, complete being. The pilgrimage is over, it said. But the journey has just begun. The dormant hunter ships around you began to change. Their dark, monstrous carapaces dissolved. They reformed into sleek, beautiful vessels of light and crystal. The true forms of their creators. Their long watch was over. They bowed their ships to you in a gesture of silent gratitude. Then, one by one, they faded away, their spirits finally at peace. Your journey's end marked a new beginning. The Pilgrim was no longer just a ship. It was the vessel of a new power, a new purpose. You and your crew were no longer just explorers. You were something more. You were the new Pilgrims. You were not conquerors. You were not gods. You were guardians, tasked with protecting the balance of the universe. You had to wield the power of creation with wisdom and compassion, to be the gardeners that the first creators had dreamed of being. Your first act was to send a message home, not a warning, not a boast, but a promise, a message of hope. You told them that humanity was not alone, and that its future was brighter than it could ever have imagined. You told them that you were coming home, but that your journey was just starting. You turned the Pilgrim away from the maw. The viewport showed a galaxy full of stars, full of life, full of possibility. It was no longer a cold, empty void. It was a garden, and you were its keepers. You were now the guardians of the cosmic dawn.